Hi everyone, I'm Josh, the dad of hobbies, and today's hobby, Superman. Superman is my absolutely favorite comic book character, which may sound cheesy at first, but I promise you, if you give him a real shot and read some of the stories I'm going to talk about in this video, watch the films, the TV shows, give Superman a real chance, he could easily become your favorite comic book character too. So, with that, let's get right into it. Today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 best Superman stories of all time. This is absolutely where you should start if you've never read a Superman comic. And if you read these stories, I really think that you'll be itching for more and want to read as much as you can of the character. Number 10, where we start off, is Action Comics number 1. So this was written by Jerry Siegel and drawn by Joe Shuster. This is the very first appearance of Superman, very first comic he ever was in. And in fact, these guys were 17 years old when they came up with this character. So it's truly incredible. The story still holds up. It's still relevant. It's paced well. It's got good character work. It's got a lot of action in it. But it's absolutely not only where you should start with the hero, but is a great, great story, and I think absolutely deserves a spot in the top 10 list. Number 9, Action Comics 775. What most people know in the comic biz as What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. This was written by Joe Kelly, drawn by Doug Monk. This is a story about explaining what that phrase means and why truth and justice matter so much to Superman, and more importantly, why taking the easy way out of killing villains or permanently making sure that they can't come back is not his way, and why that's still such an important message in a world of heroes and, of course, for us in the real world. It would be so easy for Superman to do something with the powers he has that would permanently take out people who try to cause harm. But who Superman is not that person, and this issue very, very eloquently and beautifully explains why. And it's an issue that makes most people's top 10 lists, so you should definitely give it a shot too. Number 8 on the list. I'm cheating a little bit here as I'm putting multiple issues together, but this is what I refer to as the Alan Moore Superman trilogy. Alan Moore is one of the most influential and impactful and arguably best comic book writers of all time. And he wrote a couple stories for Superman. First up, in Superman Annual 11, he wrote a story for The Man Who Has Everything. This is a story about how Superman is shown what it would be like if he was truly happy, what giving Superman happiness looks like, and then ultimately taking it away. And how Superman deals with that, and the loss of what he was given is traumatic, but a beautiful read into both the character and the concept of somebody that powerful losing something so precious. The second story Alan Moore wrote was called For the Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow. That's a story that sort of closes out what's often referred to as the Silver Age, sort of those 1950s and 60s, happier, sort of kitschier, pluckier comics. The character, or version of that character anyway, was sort of not becoming as relevant in the 80s anymore, and so DC closed out that version with a larger event, and Alan Moore sort of wrote the final tale and final chapter of that. And that story really deals with how Superman could lose everything, but ultimately could end up with a happy ending. So in a way, it's kind of the reverse of his annual issue, but both issues and both stories together really come to make a beautiful, insightful look, especially from an Alan Moore perspective of who the Superman character really is. Number 7 is going to probably confuse a little people because it's the number 1 on most people's lists. That is All-Star Superman by Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley. Now, as I said, this is number 1 on most people's lists, and there's very good reason for that. This is one of the best collected, complete stories of Superman. It's 12 issues, and in these issues they explore what Superman means, what he is as not only a character, but as an icon of both in his world of heroes as well as for us as readers. The only reason that I have ranked it so low on the list is because while it does give a beautiful, insightful look into Morrison's view of Superman as a modern-day Greek mythological hero type of character, that's not the Superman that I immediately gravitate towards. That's not a criticism. It's not to say there's anything wrong with it. As I said, most people love this story so much, and I promise you will too. But it is just not personally my favorite type of Superman story, and that's why it's number 7 and not a little bit higher. But that being said, it's a wonderful tale. Many people refer to the issue where Superman saves someone from jumping off a building as the ultimate Superman act, and they're not wrong. So definitely give that story a shot, and you will be very, very happy you did. Number six, I'm cheating a little bit too because it's not strictly a Superman story, but this is Kingdom Come by Mark Waid and Alex Ross. This story is one of the most iconic comic books that has ever been produced. This is done in the mid-90s, and it's about the future of heroes. And ultimately, if the future generation of heroes loses their way, how can Superman help them get it back? And how can Superman still matter in a world where his truth and justice ideals have been put to pasture, or where people ultimately say that he is irrelevant, that he's boring, that he's not, an interesting character? Things that all the readers in the real world say, right? How can Superman come back from that, and how can he still be relevant? And this story follows the entire DC lineup of characters and their legacy characters in a beautiful tale about what it means to do right and what it means to do good in a world where that is getting harder and harder to do every day. So as you can see, even though it was written 30 years ago, still very relevant messaging. The art in this, Alex Ross is easily one of the best comic book artists in the history of comics, let alone one of the best artists that we have in the modern day period in any medium. Mark Waid is a legend, an icon, one of the best writers that's ever lived, and this is the culmination and magnum opus of their work, and it is absolutely breathtaking to both read and view. So Kingdom Come, number 6 on my list. Getting into the top 5 here, right? So, number 5 on the list, Red Sun. Red Sun is a comic that a lot of people know of or have heard of. There was even an animated movie version of it. This is in my top 5 for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is, despite what it's trying to do with putting Superman in a different situation, it still gets truly to the heart of the character, but in a way that has really, I don't think, ever been done before, especially the ending. And I'm not going to spoil it for you, but the ending is definitely worth the whole read. The story itself is about what if Superman, instead of landing in Kansas in 1938, had landed in Soviet Russia. And I know it sounds intriguing, right? Who would Superman become? How would he influence the world, having grown up just at the brink of World War II in Soviet Russia instead of in the heartland of America? So definitely something that you should check out. Red Sun, number 5 on the list, and is absolutely a breathtaking tale. Number 4, we're getting to the end here. Number 4 on the list, Secret Identity. So Secret Identity is also an alternate world, what DC refers to as an Elseworlds tale, where it is Superman, but in the real world. And what I mean by that is it's a boy named Clark Kent who lives in our world, who one day wakes up with all of Superman's powers. How does he handle that? How does the fact that he was born with the name Clark Kent and obviously would get teased for that, how does he deal with being a hero in a world of no heroes, and what does that look like? How does that play out, right? It's the ultimate character piece. It's truly magnificent. Kurt Busiek and Stuart Immonen made this beautiful, breathtaking tale of deep diving into the mindset of somebody waking up with Superman's powers. And I don't think it's ever a story that's been repeated or really could be repeated. And it's one of my favorites. I read it probably once a year, if not more than that. Number 3 on the list. Top 3 here. Ready? Number 3 on the list, Superman for All Seasons. Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. This is a 4-issue miniseries that goes through, as the name implies, 4 seasons of a year in which Superman has just arrived in Metropolis and what he does with the city and with the people around him. How does he deal with now being Superman? I'll be honest, this actually is very relevant to today because it, in a way, influenced or at least is parallel to the recent movie that just came out, the 2025 James Gunn film. The stories weren't necessarily pulled from each other, but that concept of Superman being new and not quite yet being trusted, and what it looks like for a hero to come out in the world like that, it's a beautiful tale told from 4 different perspectives of the characters that surround Superman, and is a Superman tale in a way that's very, very unique to the character. And Tim Sale's artwork is absolutely stunning. It's I think some of his best work, and trust me, those that know him, that's saying something. Superman for All Seasons is number 3 on my list. Number 2 on my list, John Byrne's Man of Steel miniseries. So I mentioned earlier that Alan Moore sort of closed the chapter on the Silver Age version of the character. He sort of did that last final tale of Superman perhaps finding a happy ending. DC did an event that sort of reset the clock in continuity a little bit in the 80s, and so that meant that we needed a new, modern at the time version of Superman, and John Byrne was tasked with that. And in these 6 issues, he tells a complete origin from this cold, dead planet of Krypton all the way through Superman not only announcing himself, but realizing who he is, learning about who he is, both from various people around him as well as inner turmoil himself. You get this complete picture of Superman that, while there have been a ton of origin stories over the years, I think none have quite done what John Byrne did in these 6 issues. It's some of his best artwork, because he wrote and drew it, which is already impressive enough, but you get a inner look inside of Superman in a way that I absolutely love. It's number 2 for a reason, and I think that the insight into how a character like Superman becomes Superman is one of my favorite things about him. That humanized, that Clark Kent angle, that piece that grew up on a Kansas farm, that's what John Byrne gets to, and I think it's absolutely one of the best Superman tales, and certainly, in my opinion, the best Superman origin tale that's ever been told. Which leads us to number 1. So, believe it or not, number 1 is actually a very recent story, which a lot of people would find interesting, because you'd think that it wouldn't be a number 1 story if it was, in the last couple of years, because there's so many others. But Superman Up in the Sky by Tom King and Andy Kubert is my favorite Superman story of all time. And I have not met anybody that has read this story that does not love it as much as I do. This is a 6-issue vignette style story that shows what Superman will do for somebody in need, how far he will go, how he will help people no matter what, and no matter who is in trouble, from an entire planet to the littlest girl needing to be found. Superman will do what he does because he can, and because he can, it will ensure that he will never stop fighting to find a way to help that person. The story is ultimately hard to describe because of how good it is in some ways, but this gets to who the character is unlike any story I've ever seen. The previous 9 show all of these different versions and all these different takes on the character, and they are not incredible, but Up in the Sky to me almost is at a different level. And given that it came out in the last few years, 2018 I believe was when it first started, it just is extraordinary that in these modern times we can have somebody writing Superman that encapsulates who Superman is through action, through his choices, through what he decides to do and how he decides to help. And it's truly magnificent. So that's it, the top 10 Superman stories of all time. You should absolutely hunt those down. You can find them online through the DC Universe comic book reading app. You can find them in your local comic book store, support small businesses, or you can find them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, other places as well. But however you acquire them, you should definitely read them. I promise you won't be disappointed. And of course, make sure to follow, subscribe, like, etc. for all of my hobbies and interests. And until then, see you next time.